Hello and welcome to English 101. I'll be your instructor, Dr. Sam Lackey, and this is the Week 1 lecture. So I want to spend the first part of this lecture just introducing us to the class, talking a little bit about what we're going to be doing in here. This is Composition 1. And composition just means writing. So obviously we are writing a lot. We are trying to improve as writers in this class. And in order to do that, to help us do that, we're also going to be reading a lot. So as you can imagine, in this class, our focus is on improving our abilities to write well and to read successfully. Really, those two skills go hand in hand, reading and writing. You can't do one without the other. So we'll talk a little bit more about what the class is all about and what you guys can expect on a week-to-week basis, and then we'll get into our Week 1 content. We're not covering a whole lot of stuff in Week 1 because I know everybody's sort of getting adjusted, getting settled into the semester. So sometimes we take it a little bit easy in Week 1 because we're looking at the syllabus, we're getting used to things, and we'll really get a full week of material starting in Week 2. But there are a few things that we're going to go over, some actual material here in Week 1 that you'll need for your first assignment of the class. But the first thing you should really do is go into Web Campus and take a look at our Week 1 module. So this is obviously an online class, so really everything that you need can be found in the weekly modules inside Web Campus or Canvas. Many of you have probably used this online learning platform before. If you haven't, don't worry, it's easy to use and you need to get used to it here at the beginning of the semester. So if you go into our course page in Canvas, you'll see that the entire semester is broken down week by week. So if you go into the Week 1 module, you'll see everything that you need for that week. So that includes a weekly overview. That's usually the first thing that you'll see in the module. And the overview is just a summary of what we're going to be doing that week. Pretty simple. I don't always include a really high level of detail. I'm just giving you a broad sort of overview of what we're covering that week. Any reading assignment will also be posted in the module. Any written assignment will be posted, and a link can be found to any assignment that might be due. Also, you'll find the weekly video lecture, like the one you're watching right now. That can always be found in the modules, along with any other material that I might want to include. Sometimes I'll include links to videos. I might include some supplemental documents that are going to help us during that particular week. So anything else that we need will be inside the module. And I open each week's module early on the Monday of that week. So here in Week 1, I opened up the Week 1 module first thing Monday morning. So that's the beginning of our week. And our weeks end Sunday night. So that's a full 7-day week to get everything done for that week. So if you have any type of assignment due, it's always going to be due by 11:59 p.m. Sunday night. That is the official end of the week. And then once we hit Monday morning, we start a new week. So that's the way I like to do things. It's clean, it's simple, and I want everybody to sort of get into a weekly routine. You should always look at the overview. You should always watch my lecture. Take a look at what we're reading that week, and then take a look at what is due in terms of written work that week. If you can do that every week, you'll be in good shape and you'll be able to keep up with our schedule. It's okay if you're not checking everything first thing Monday morning. You might look later in the day on Monday. You might even wait until Tuesday, but you definitely need to take a look at the weekly module early in the week. Don't wait until Thursday. Don't wait until Friday. Don't wait until the end of the week because then you're going to be a little bit pressed for time. But if you can look on Monday or Tuesday and get started on that week's work, you should be fine. So I'll try to keep these lectures between 20 and 30 minutes most weeks. Occasionally we might run a little bit longer if I have a lot to cover. But here in week one, the lecture will be pretty brief, but just be prepared. Sometimes we have more ground to cover, more material to discuss, so the lectures might be a little bit longer. But make it a habit to watch these before the end of the week. Another thing that we're going to be doing on a weekly basis will be discussion posts. So you guys have probably done these before, maybe in other classes. Pretty simple concept. We're just going to try to simulate an in-class discussion. Obviously, we're not meeting in person, but the discussion board will give us a chance to talk to one another. So that's a big part of the class, and typically we're going to be talking about the things that we read. So every week we have a reading assignment from 50 essays, the one required book that everybody needs to have for this class. Sometimes we'll read one essay, sometimes we'll read 2 essays for the week. But I will give you guys a chance to talk about those texts on the discussion board. You can respond to each other, you can read each other's posts. It's just a way for us to create a little bit of a sense of community. I will give you prompts to respond to. So I do want you to answer my questions, but the discussion board is designed to be kind of informal, conversational. It's a chance to just get down your impressions, your responses to the readings, but it's also a way for me to verify that you guys are doing the reading. So I don't like to do reading quizzes or anything like that. Instead, I like to use these discussion posts as a way for you guys to show me that you're reading the stuff, you're thinking about these essays. You don't have to understand everything. You don't need to have all of the answers right away. As we're going to see, reading and writing really are processes. They take long periods of time to master. So it's okay if you have questions about some of the essays that we read. It's okay if you're not 100% sure about all of my questions, but I want to see that you are engaged, that you're thinking about these essays, and obviously I want to see that you're putting forth the time to actually read this stuff and not just to read summaries of them online. Because yes, you can find summaries for most of these essays online, but I don't want those. I want your own original thoughts. So if you guys can get into that weekly routine, do your post, watch the lecture, read the overview, and then just keep up with whatever assignments we're working on, that's a huge part of the class. Being consistent, checking in every week, putting in some work every week, that really is important for all college classes, but it's certainly important for this class because we are reading and writing a lot. So I just issue that warning at the beginning. There's no way around it. This is a composition class, so we have to do both things a lot. And you guys know everybody is good at something. So whether you play sports or if you play a musical instrument or anything else, you know that if you want to get good at that thing, you have to practice. So that's what we're going to do in this class. We are practicing our reading and writing skills on a weekly basis. I will try to make that practice fun and interesting, at least as much as possible. I think you will find some essays in the book that you enjoy, even if you don't think of yourself as a big reader. And even if you're not a huge fan of writing, you'll get to choose your own topics. You'll get to choose your subject matter. You'll get to express your own personal views. Not all the time, but much of the time. So hopefully you can find some enjoyment in that. Reading and writing are really basic foundational skills. So even if you don't think of yourself as a big reader or writer, you might not enjoy doing these things very much, and that's fine, but you need to become proficient because these skills are important not just in English class, but in other college classes and perhaps even more importantly, in the real world. Even if your job doesn't necessarily require you to write and read all the time, you still have to do it. You have to write emails. You have to read things all the time and comprehend them and do something with that information. And you'll often use writing to communicate, both in the workplace, outside of the workplace, in future academic settings. So these are important skills to hone. These are important skills to have, whether we're talking about English class or not. So we will be practicing, and we need to stay on schedule. If you find yourself falling behind, or if you're struggling with anything, if you have questions, concerns, never hesitate to communicate with me. Email me. That's usually the best way for us to talk in an online class. If you have any kind of question, if you need additional help on an assignment, just email me. I will get back to you within 24 hours and we can talk. If you need a more extended conversation, we can also schedule a video conference through Zoom. And if you look at the first page of our course syllabus, you'll see my contact information at the very top of page 1. So you can email me, you can call, you can schedule a video conference, whatever you need to do. But don't feel bad about reaching out with questions. Talking and having a sort of a running dialogue is a big part of the class. So speaking of the syllabus, if you are looking at the week 1 module, go ahead and open the syllabus up. I've posted it in a couple of places, so you can find it in the week 1 module. You can also find it under the syllabus tab in that left-hand toolbar once you're inside our course page in Canvas. You want to probably save a copy of the course syllabus. You might even want to print one out. I don't typically ask you guys to print things, but this is a good document to hang on to because obviously all of my course policies are there, my contact info. You can also see the information for 50 essays. Hopefully you've already ordered the book. You can get it through the GBC bookstore or from some other online bookseller. But if you look on page 1, you'll see the ISBN number and you'll see the proper edition number. You need the 6th edition. Okay, make sure you're looking for the number 6. Okay, there are many earlier editions that we're no longer using. So the readings are slightly different depending on the edition. So make sure you have the 6th edition. And if you don't have the book yet, hopefully you've at least ordered it so it's on its way. One thing I will do for you guys in week 1 and maybe in week 2 is I will post PDF versions of the weekly readings for these first couple of weeks because I know not everybody has the book yet. But after week 2, the expectation is that everybody has the book. So I'm not going to post PDFs of the reading selections all semester. I don't intend to do that. That takes a lot of time, and it's also, I think, I'm violating copyright laws. So I'm only doing it at the beginning of the semester. So make sure you get the book. If you're having any issues getting the book, just let me know. So that information's on page 1 of the syllabus. Also keep in mind you can get an electronic version of the book, and that is fine too. So of course, you can look at the course policies in the syllabus. You can look at the grading scale. You can look at how many points all of the assignments are worth. I'm not going to go through all of that right now. I want you guys to look through that. Okay, look at our major assignments. Look at the point totals, and if you have any questions, let me know. The most important part of the syllabus that I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about comes at the end of the document. So go to like page 5 or maybe it's page 6. Towards the end of the syllabus, you should see a course schedule. All right, that's something that you really need to hang on to. The course schedule there is complete. It is pretty detailed. It includes all of our assignments for the semester, and you can see what we are doing week by week. So if you want to work ahead, you can use the course schedule in the syllabus to do that. I only post the modules in Canvas 1 week at a time. But if you want to see what's coming up later, if you want to work ahead, you see the complete schedule there. All of our assignments are there. All of the deadlines for those assignments are there. So that should be a useful part of the syllabus, and you might want to refer to it periodically, especially if you miss some time if you're out of town, if you're sick, if you take a few days or even a full week off from your academic work and you're coming back and trying to catch up, use that course schedule to see what you've missed. And if you have any questions about what you've missed or if you need help, of course, you can email me. But you don't really need to ask me what you missed because all of the assignments and all of the deadlines are there. So, and obviously, if you're looking at previous weeks, those modules are posted. So if you didn't do anything in week 3 and you need to catch up and now it's week 4, look back at the week 3 module. It's not too late. Everything is there and you can go back and do the work. Like I said, talk to me if you have any issues, if you fall behind. I know things happen. I know we all have busy schedules, other classes, jobs, families. So just talk to me. If you need extensions, if you need to turn some stuff in late, let's talk. We can work something out. Okay? So just take a look at the syllabus. If you have any questions about anything that's on the syllabus, just let me know. So that's pretty much it for introductory stuff. Let's move on and talk about our week 1 content because this is really important foundational stuff as you guys get started on our first couple of assignments, our first reading assignment and our first discussion post. So what we're talking about mostly in week 1 is reading. We're going to start with reading and then we're going to get a little bit more into writing beginning next week. But I want us to learn some simple basics for becoming better readers. The good news is we can all read, so I don't have to teach you that. You already know how to read and you've read plenty of stuff in your lives. And I actually want you to stop and take a moment and think about the last thing that you read. Even if you don't think of yourself as a big reader, even if you don't really read for pleasure a whole lot, you read something. It might not have been a novel. It might not have been an actual book, but I bet you read an email or a text message or maybe something on social media. Maybe you read something while you were out shopping. Maybe you were looking at a billboard. Maybe you were reading labels on food or clothing. We all read all the time. Of course, in this class, what we're reading is a little bit different from some of those examples, but we always read, whether we really like to or not. So we need to become the best readers that we can be. And the best way to do that is to become active and critical. We want to become active, critical readers. And those are kind of our key words for today. So I want you to think about what that means. To be an active reader means that you read with a pen in hand and you are very much engaged, actively engaged with the text. So if I'm reading my essay for the week, it's important that I do a few things in preparation. Before I actually sit down to read the essay, I need to have a pen. I need to shut out any outside distractions. So take the headphones off, turn off music. You might have some music playing in the background, but maybe turn down the volume, and any conversations that you might have been engaging in, whether they were in person with people in the room or in the next room, or if you're talking to people online. Take a break from all of those conversations. Put the phone down, hopefully, for a little while. If you get an important call, of course you can take it. But a big part of being an active reader is just focusing. Okay, we often multitask in our lives. It's normal. We all do it. Sometimes we have to do it. But if you want to maximize your reading experience, you really need to turn everything off, or at least turn it down. Tell people to stop talking to you and really focus. Sit up straight, okay? Have the book in front of you and have a pen in hand. Because a big part of active reading is to actually write a little bit as you read. And some students are reluctant to do this because it does slow you down a little bit as you're reading. So I've heard students say, I don't want to stop to write stuff because then it just takes me longer to finish the reading. Well, I do understand that, but most of our essays are relatively short. It's not going to take you an exceptionally long time to read these. So if you add a little bit of time to the experience, that's not bad, because what you're writing down is going to help you later. So there are two things I want you to remember when it comes to active reading: underlining and annotating. So we all know what underlining is. As you're reading, since you have a pen or pencil in hand, you should underline or circle or even highlight the most important parts of whatever it is that you're reading. The most important key words, the most important sentences, maybe the most important passages, like maybe a paragraph or two. Anything that catches your interest, anything that you might be unsure about, is also good to underline or circle. If you come across a word or a name that you don't recognize, you probably need to look it up. You probably need to figure out what it is. So maybe you want to circle it so you can figure it out either right then or a little bit later. Anything that strikes you as important, anything that strikes you as really interesting or cool or thought-provoking in any way, you should underline it, circle it, or highlight it. Obviously, you're not underlining everything. You're underlining the most important things. And you're doing it for multiple reasons. For one, it creates a record. You can come back and find those moments, those pieces later on, if you need to work with the essay more. If you're writing about the essay or if you're using it in some other way, you can come back and find those really important passages, and then you can actually start doing something with them. Also, when you underline or circle or highlight, that gives you a chance to start annotating. When you annotate, that just means you're writing little notes in the margin of the page. So I know it's kind of dark in here now, the sun has moved, but if I'm annotating in the book, I can write on the page, in the margins here, right next to the main blocks of text. But if you don't want to mark up your book, if you're hoping to sell it back or whatever, you can just get a scrap piece of paper. You can just get a notebook. You can even do this in a Word document. And these don't have to be complete sentences. These don't have to be really polished notes. You can write in fragments. You can write in shorthand. This is just a way to commit some of this stuff to memory. Anything that you've underlined or circled, jot down a note to go along with it. What do you think about that sentence? How do you feel about that particular word? Why do you think the author is doing this particular thing? You can jot down almost anything as a note. Sometimes there are little points that you might want to return to. I think this. I feel that. But in other cases, they might be questions. If you're unsure about something, what does he mean by that? What does this mean? Why is this happening? What do I think about this? You might want to write down some questions that you can answer later. Also, if you're looking up unfamiliar words or names or events, you might want to jot down a little definition or a little explanation to go along with those things. If you just do a quick Google search, you figure it out, you don't want to forget that information. So instead of just assuming that you're going to remember, go ahead and write it down. Turn it into a brief note that you can put either directly on the book or on one of those scrap pieces of paper, and maybe not a scrap piece of paper, because then you might throw it away, but in a notebook or on a Word doc. It would be great to have a notebook that you devote to this class, or to start a Word document or some kind of word processing document that you devote to this class. And you can maybe put all of your annotations there. But this is just simple stuff, simple basic stuff when it comes to being a good active reader. And you also want to be a critical reader. And if you look at the introduction to 50 essays, that's the first thing that we're reading this semester, they talk about critical thinking. And they make the distinction between critical thinking and being critical like in a negative way. Like being critical of a friend, for how they're dressed or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about critical thinking. Which really means three things. And the book kind of walks us through this. If you can look at that intro chapter, hopefully we all can look at it later in the week. So if we're critically thinking, that really means that we are being inquisitive, evaluative, and at times maybe even skeptical. So to be inquisitive just means we're asking questions. We're trying to understand. We're trying to learn. We're trying to discover. And that's the attitude I want you to have with the essays that we read, even if you don't really like all of them, even if some of them are a little bit difficult or weird. You need to go in there with an open mind, with an inquisitive mind. You need to try to figure it out. It's okay if you don't figure it out immediately. That's why we ask questions. That's why we take notes. That's why we sometimes have to discuss it with our classmates and our professor. We try to figure it out. That's a huge part of critical thinking. You can't just get frustrated and say, I don't like this. I'm putting it down and forgetting about it forever. So be inquisitive. Also be evaluative. To evaluate just means to decide if you think it's good. Do you think it's right? Do you think it's important, valuable, whatever? You get to evaluate the essays that we read, just like I will ultimately evaluate your work. That's a part of my job, but when you're a critical thinker and a critical reader, that means you're evaluating the stuff that you're reading. You're not just accepting it necessarily. You're not just assuming that it's always going to be right and good. You get to make some determinations. You get to make some informed decisions about the quality, the correctness, and the value of a lot of the stuff that we read. And it's okay if you don't always agree with others. It's okay if you don't always agree with me. If you're a good, active, and critical reader, that means you're arriving at original ideas. And as long as you can back them up, it's okay if they're a little bit different than my ideas or one of your classmates' ideas. That's the beauty of reading. We all do it slightly differently. So you're going to be evaluative. And finally, you might be a little bit skeptical at times. We don't always want to be skeptical, but sometimes we are going to be a little bit resistant or doubtful about certain ideas or certain essays that we read, and that's okay. Sometimes you might not necessarily or immediately accept or believe what one of these authors has to say. That's okay. You don't have to agree with all of them. But if you disagree, you need to have good reasons why. But it's okay to be skeptical sometimes, and it's okay to disagree sometimes, as long as you can point to the why and give us some evidence. So that's all critical thinking really is for us in this class. It's just approaching these essays with an inquisitive, evaluative, and sometimes skeptical attitude. And then that's going to carry over to your writing as well. So when we're reading, we want to be active so we can remember everything, and we want to be critical so we're really digging deep and figuring things out. But I can't stress the active part enough, because too many students read passively. Too many students just kind of are kicking back, relaxing. I don't know if you can see me reclining here, but we have our phones out, headphones on, people talking. That's not a good way to read. And also, if you read without writing anything, even if you are paying attention, that's not ideal either, because the human mind is not great at remembering what we read. So even if you are paying attention, and even if you are thinking about the text, if you wait a couple of weeks and then try to come back to it, you're going to forget a lot of stuff. So by writing things down, you create a record. You can return to that later and use it. So let's practice being active and critical readers this week by using something that should be pretty familiar and sort of easy to work with: song lyrics. So that's your first discussion post. I want you guys to find a song that you like, a song that you're familiar with. It does not matter what genre the song is. Just anything, as long as you can find the lyrics online. I need you to find the lyrics and either save them or print them, because you will need them in order to complete discussion post 1. I simply want you to provide a basic response to the song lyrics, answer a few simple questions that I give you in the discussion board. But to do that, I want you guys to practice all of the stuff I just discussed. I want you to be active readers. Mark up the lyrics. If you print them out, you can underline and annotate on the printout. If you're not able to print, just jot down some notes on a separate page. Jot down some of those annotations that I was talking about. Questions, impressions, how do you feel? What do you think? You're trying to interpret the song. What does the song mean? What is the message? What's the overall theme or message of the song? That's what I'm asking you to really talk about in the discussion board. So use the active reading and critical reading techniques that I just talked about, that you can find in the week 1 overview and that you can see in the introductory chapter to 50 essays. That's what I want you guys to read this week. The intro chapter, they give you a really nice annotation checklist. They talk about critical thinking, a lot of the stuff that I've already covered, but you can go back through it, get some reinforcement. So you have my overview, you have what I've already done, plus that first chapter and 50 essays. Use all of that stuff to attack your song lyrics and to interpret them. And then the results will be on display in our first discussion. So if you have any questions about anything, let me know. Good luck with the first week, and I will see you next week.